You've also talked about segmentation of the different functions within an insurance company. Possibly we could call them silos as well, yes. Because the data silos goes with it.
Yeah.
But you know, in the survey, we found that actually the number one barrier was still integration between the functions. What is it that is especially difficult in insurance? Is it because the processes are so fundamentally different, or because they use such fundamentally different data in each of those areas? Or, you know, what other, point of view do you have on that difficulty in integration?
As I say, some of it is kind of cultural. Some of it is, and we maybe talk about ROI and the differences in the timelines around ROI for, say, front-end what I would call agentic AI versus claims, which have such a long tail before you really know whether the decisions you've been taking from an underwriting perspective ultimately deliver the best outcome for the firm at the end of the day, because claims tails can go on for 2, 3, 4 years, whereas front-end decisions around agentic AI, you can see the benefits from an efficiency perspective really quickly, because obviously call lengths might be lower, conversion rates should be higher. The development of personalization using AI should result in better conversion rates. You'll see that almost immediately. So from the distribution of front end, what we call front end perspective, customer facing, you can see the benefits of ROI far more quickly. So they're operating on very different kind of timelines and very different approaches to, say, the claims teams and the underwriting teams. So we've made a decision today. We'll only know in 2, 3, 4 years' time whether that was the right decision from a pricing perspective, etc., from a risk segmentation perspective. So that naturally creates almost a different kind of cultural way of looking at things, and that is partly why some of the segmentation maybe in the different parts of an insurer, if it's an end-to-end insurer, mean that you don't then get an enterprise-wide approach to things.
Absolutely.
Because people are working on very different timelines.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for clarifying that.
Okay.
It also makes me think about where do insurance get the talent, therefore, to really lead that transformation? Because, from what you're describing, they're also running like individual businesses with their own metrics and ROIs and data and things like that. So, is it a question of creating an organization that works across all of those areas, or to what extent is partnership with an external organization like an HTEC, for example, helping to accelerate that, or to at least shine the lens on those specific areas of ROI that you've talked about? Yeah,
I think my starting point would be to start with partner with somebody. The various boards that I'm on are starting to look at how they can kind of improve their knowledge and understanding of AI and the benefits and the opportunities that it could bring to the insurance sector, to its customers and to the firm, by partnering with various firms, doing the research and analysis and partnering with various firms. In terms of them building, industrial capability within the insurance sector around AI, I think that's going to be a hybrid approach. Certainly, some of the organisations I'm involved in, we're looking to build an approach where we partner with somebody to start with and start to build that in-house capability. And the areas where it probably feels like it's probably going to be easier to build that in-house capability around AI, I would say in the pricing teams, for example.
Right.
Pricing teams in UK personal lines have been working with machine learning models for 10, 15 years. So AI, to me, is a natural evolution from machine learning into AI. So those teams, particularly in the more kind of developed insurance firms, and in the UK, it would be probably more on the personal line side, have already started on that journey and started to build their capability beyond machine learning into AI. So that combination of existing kind of internal talent in this area, combined with partnering with a firm like HTEC, I think could help to accelerate those firms' kind of capabilities within the AI space.
So they're effectively building their skills in parallel to the partner coming on board. So that certainly makes a lot of sense. In our predictions that we did for 2026, a fellow board advisor, George Brady, who ventured in predicting that multi-agent system will automate what we call previously untouchable workflows. Where do you see AI landing first when it comes to insurance? And also, as we talked about earlier, where do you see the accountability really remaining very much with the human?
I agree with George. I think the multi-agent systems is the future. I think it'll take a bit of time for insurance to kind of get comfortable with multi-agent systems. And again, I think it's at the front end where I think the biggest benefits are going to be, and that can be either from kind of utilizing AI to replace some of the contact center type capabilities, traditional contact center capabilities, in addition to on the underwriting side of things. And I think I've said, we talked before about the opportunity for AI to take over some of the more manual, some of the more transactional, either conversations with customers, informing customers, or whether it's from an underwriting, building capabilities from an underwriting perspective, building data, bringing together all of the various forms of data together. And there's a huge amount of data now available to use to make even better underwriting decisions. And then that will allow the agents, the underwriting guys, to kind of focus very much on the value add piece.
Yes.
So it's more of an oversight, checking to make sure that some of those decisions are the right decisions, and just validating some of the recommendations that have been made by the AI tool, if you like. There was an interesting article today that Aviva have just introduced AI in some of their protection application processes.
Right.
So for life insurance, for example, where historically there's a huge amount of medical questions that would have to be asked to the customer that would then be validated by the underwriter, who would then come back with a price. They're now starting to use an AI tool to automate all of that medical questionnaire stuff and deliver a price to the customer.
Yeah.
So there's huge benefits across the life industry, personal lines and particularly commercial lines, especially where there's some more complex underwriting processes. So the more complex risks require a significant amount of investigation, data gathering, to ultimately make a decision about what the price might be for the customer. Yeah. And that's where I think AI can provide a fantastic kind of valuable tool to speed up the process for the customer, deliver some kind of a competitive edge potentially for that insurer by being able to get back to the customer with a decision far more quickly than some of the more traditional insurers.
Absolutely, because when you deal with an insurer, there's definitely pain and emotional pain that's involved. So the faster 100%. You resolve that, the more likely you are to stay with that insurer effectively. You've touched on a point mentioning Aviva. I mean, there's been a lot in the last, 8-9 months of consolidation in the market. And Aviva is one of them, as well as I think Munich Re have recently, talked about making an acquisition or have now completed that. Yeah. How can AI help those organizations to really not jeopardize the customer experience? What could potentially be some good wins in that M&A arena?
One of the challenges for a number of the insurers and the brokers who've consolidated or gone through a process of a series of acquisitions, and I used to work for one many years ago, is you have multiple data sets, multiple different customer journeys, different pricing capabilities, and that creates, first of all, a lot of friction in the customer journeys. It increases cost. And then they often go through a process of trying to consolidate, integrate onto single platforms. It's one of the barriers to success for a lot of the insurers, is when they do go through this acquisition process of how do you bring all that together, big programs of consolidation, integration, and that can take quite a long time. I do think there is an opportunity to find a way of streamlining that whole process, utilizing AI. I think it can do that kind of far more quickly, far more efficiently than maybe they have done in the past. What you've seen, and another reason why it's taken many insurers so long to kind of on the AI journey, is because they have a huge number of legacy platforms. Some have multiple legacy platforms, and so to try and find a way of integrating all that and then kind of delivering the fantastic kind of front end journeys that you want to deliver for customers is really, really difficult across multiple brands. Some of the more, advanced thinking insurers recently in the UK have moved to modularized platforms.
Right.
So there are a couple of insurers, I won't name them, but a couple of insurers that have moved to a modularized platform approach. And what that will do, I think, will give them a far better opportunity to integrate AI tools into their modularized platforms than the insurers who've got these big 20, 30-year-old legacy platforms.
Yes.
Some have 2, 3, 4. And how do you build AI into these big old legacy platforms?
And what role do you think AI plays in achieving that modular architecture effectively?
I think there's multiple different roles that it can play, particularly I think through the front end approach, through the agentic AI. I think that will give them a great opportunity to kind of bring benefits through the contact center.
So you've preempted my question around legacy modernization
Right.
and how long it was going to take an organisation to do so. I think we're clear on the fact that it takes a very long time. So we've talked about ROI and how the fact that different functions within an insurers have got different ROIs, and that does create some stumbling blocks.